Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Chapter 8, The Queen's Croquet Ground. When we last left off, Two was telling Alice about what they were doing to cover up their mistake in planting the wrong color rose bush. So you see, the last word on the last page was so. So you see, Miss, now who's talking? Two is talking, right? We're doing our best afore she comes to dash, boom, hyphen, block, stop, right? And at this moment, Five, who had been anxiously looking across the garden, called out, "The Queen, the Queen!" And the gardeners instantly threw themselves flat upon their faces. The word flat is interesting. Let me highlight that. Flat upon their faces, right? Three gardeners threw themselves flat. I did highlight it already. How about that? So now they're flat on the ground because the queen is coming. And don't forget, they're in trouble. Because if the queen figures out they made a mistake, they're going to lose their heads. So first came the 10 soldiers. This is very important. Pay attention. First came 10 soldiers carrying clubs. Clubs, that's an interesting word. These were all shaped like the three gardeners, oblong and flat. Now we're starting to define. The third person narrator is starting to reveal what the gardeners look like. This is very important because now we're going to find out, in fact, that they're playing cards, right? They're oblong and flat. And I defined oblong for you over here. It's on the right, a two-dimensional shape that has two pairs of parallel sides and four right angles. I think that's a playing card. In any case, oblong and flat with their hands and their feet at the corners. So now you can imagine a playing card with hands and feet on the corners, right? Or a flat oblong surface. And next came the 10 courtiers, right? What's a courtier? It's a person who attends a royal court as a companion or advisor. If you've watched old movies with Queen Elizabeth or some of the other rulers, Henry VIII, you'll see courtiers. And you can pronounce that in different ways. But those are the people that hang around the court and they attend the royal court. What does that mean? They attend it? They just hang around looking for favors, looking to have influence, looking to speak to royalty. They're courtiers. So there's 10 of those. And I'm outlining this on the left for you. So there's 10 soldiers, 10 courtiers. And these were ornamented all over with diamonds. They've got diamonds. The other ones have clubs. Have you used a deck of cards lately? Diamonds and clubs, right? So you've got these courtiers with diamonds, and they walked two and two as the soldiers did. 2 and 2. So they're walking in pairs. And after these came the royal children. There were 10 of them. And the little dears came jumping merrily along, hand in hand, in couples. So 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. But there's 10 children. And they were all ornamented with hearts. Diamonds, clubs, hearts. And next came the guests, mostly the kings and queens. And among them, Alice recognized who? Who? The White Rabbit. It was talking in a hurried, nervous manner, smiling at everything that was said. He's always nervous, this rabbit, isn't he? And then he went by without noticing her. He didn't notice Alice, right? Then followed the Knave of Hearts, Jack of Hearts, carrying the king's crown on a crimson velvet cushion. And last but not least, right, the grand procession came, the King and the Queen of Hearts. So there we got it, ladies and gentlemen. Hearts, diamonds, clubs. Spades are missing, right? Spades. Alice was rather doubtful whether she should talk, ought to not lie down on her face. So she's doubtful whether she should lie on her face like the three gardeners, but she could not remember ever having heard such a rule at processions. So she's been to processions, obviously been around the block. She's never heard a rule of falling flat on your face. And besides, what would be the use of a procession? She thinks. Remember, she's thinking, she's talking, she's thinking, she's talking. She goes back and forth. And in this case, she's thinking that if people all had to lie down on their faces, they couldn't see the procession. So she just stood there and she waited. She waited. She's just standing there and waiting. She doesn't collapse on the ground face down. So when the procession came opposite to Alice, they all stopped and looked at her. Why? Well, she's not a card, right? And the queen said severely, "Who is this?" There's that word again. Who? Who is this? Right? This is all about who she is, who she thinks she is. Who is this? She said it to the knave of hearts, who only bowed and smiled in reply. Why does he do that? He doesn't know. Idiot, said the queen, tossing her head impatiently. Who's an idiot? Alice or the knave? Idiot. And turning to Alice, she went on, "What's your name, child?" Okay, so she knows she's a child and she asks her name. "My name is Alice, so please your majesty," said Alice very politely. "My name is Alice, so please your majesty." Please what? Well, she's being polite. But she added to herself, note, "Why, they're only a pack of cards. After all, I needn't be afraid of them." This is the key to the puzzle of this episode right here. They're only a pack of cards. There it is. Alice says this to herself. The narrator is telling what she's saying to herself. The third person narrator, right? And she says, "I needn't be afraid of them." So politeness stemmed from fear. She was polite because she was afraid, but then she realizes they're a pack of cards, so she shouldn't be afraid. We're going to talk about fear in a minute. "And who are these?" said the queen, pointing to the three gardeners who were lying on the ground around the rose tree. For you see, they were lying with their faces down, and the pattern on their backs, don't forget their cards, was the same as the rest of the pack. She, and I finished this for you from the next page so you don't, die of curiosity. She could not tell whether they were gardeners or soldiers or courtiers, or the three were her own children. Why couldn't she tell that? Because the backs of the playing cards are all the same. They look the same. Got it? Wow. Let's think about fear for a moment. So Alice was afraid. She's been afraid a lot since she's, ran down the rabbit hole after the rabbit and had all these adventures in Wonderland. So she's been afraid a lot, but she's always managed to overcome her fear. Somehow, she always managed, either through conversations, through realizations, etc. So if you look at the note on the bottom of the page, fear is an unpleasant emotion. It's caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or is a threat. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've all felt fear. And if you haven't felt fear, then suggestion, there might be something wrong. So what is fear? Well, I got that defined for you over here. Fear is experienced in your mind, but it triggers strong physical reactions in your body. What is fear? Do you ever notice, like when you're a child and children love to be scared, don't they? They love it because, oh, yeah, scare me. Oh, it's okay. Oh, good. Oh, scare me. Fear is an interesting emotion when you're a kid because you really have no concept that things can hurt you. That things can actually hurt you. Look what was happening when the Duchess was bouncing the pig. Alice was in agony. She was in agony because the Duchess was hurting. She was, oh my God, look at what's going on. Fear triggers emotional reaction. There's a saying that certain military people have that if you feel fear, you're still alive. which is an interesting concept. So as soon as you recognize fear, your small organ in your middle of your brain goes to work. It alerts your nervous system, which sets your body's fear response in motion. I'm not going to read you all this, but it basically triggers physical reaction. Remember, we were talking about the relationship of your senses and how some people think there's 150 senses, but there's really, so fear, when you look at and fear comes through eyesight, premonition, whatever. You can imagine fear. It could be a real fear. What is fear? Fear sometimes makes you stall. You stall. That's what actually Navy SEALs do. They practice not stalling. Because everybody, I assure you, everybody is afraid of bullets being shot at them, right? But that's not what we're talking about. She was afraid of the queen because she's heard that the queen is going to behead these guys. They're afraid of the queen. She's heard it before in other chapters that this queen is no one to mess around with. So when the queen asks her, who are you? Who are you? Who are your child? She doesn't want to say the wrong thing in order to tick the queen off and have her lose her head. Another thing about fear I wanted to call your attention to is that fear keeps you safe. Fear is natural and biological condition we all experience. Says this doctor, it's important we experience fear to keep us safe. Fear is complex human emotion. If you're not afraid, you may walk like walking across the street. A kid who doesn't know that a car can kill him starts walking across the street. It's not good when a car meets a kid, right? It's just not good. Or a car meets a person. Because if you're not careful, right? And that's what fear means. Fear means it doesn't paralyze you, but you're aware. You have to be aware. Now, some people are afraid of spiders. Some people are afraid, some people are so afraid they never leave their house. That's a psychological condition. That's not what we're talking about here. See how Alice overcomes her fear when she realizes that these things, these gardeners, the queen, the courtiers, etc., are just a pack of cards. So fear, they said, is experienced in your mind, but it triggers physical reactions. Ladies and gentlemen, your mind connects your body, and your thoughts are all in your head. And those thoughts can be so powerful, that they can trigger fear, but they can also trigger no fear. You've seen that sometimes on trucks, no fear. I've always wondered what that means when you see that decal on a truck or a car, no fear. Well, it's nice not to have fear, but if you don't have fear, something bad's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. Okay, this is Jimmy. You've been reading with Jimmy, Chapter 8, The Queen's Croquet Ground. And in Chapter 8, in this case, we saw Alice meet the gardeners and the queen. And here we go. Reading with Jimmy, Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com, Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. That's my email. Please send me an email. And don't be afraid to analyze the next couple of pages. Because I'm not. I'm going to do it in a moment.